Rehydrating properly after weigh-ins can make the difference between being bigger, stronger, and faster than your opponent, or getting knocked out in the first round. If you're not willing to roll the dice on the outcome of your fight, then let me show you exactly what to do to guarantee that you're stepping back in that ring at 100% of your potential and ready to perform at your best. Firstly, what to drink. If you just drink plain water after the weigh-ins, you're just going to pee most of it out, and that's all fluid that is not going towards rehydrating your body. So we don't want to do that. Even if you drink a sports drink, it's still not optimal for post-weigh-in rehydration, as the sodium is too low for this very specific purpose. The three main things we're interested in for the purposes of rehydration after the weigh-ins are fluid, carbohydrate, and sodium. Having the correct concentration of carbohydrate and sodium in your rehydration drinks is essential to support optimal rehydration. Let me explain what these correct concentrations are for both carbohydrates and sodium so you can build an optimal rehydration drink. We want to consume an oral rehydration solution with less than 6% carbohydrates, also known as hypotonic, meaning this will have less than 60 grams of carbohydrates per liter of fluid. Sports drinks are isotonic, meaning they typically have 6 to 8% carbohydrate concentration or 60 to 80 grams of carbs per liter. The main issue with sports drinks for post-weigh-in rehydration is that they are too low in sodium, coming in at only about 500 milligrams per liter, which brings us nicely onto the sodium component. We want to be consuming 2 to 3 times the sodium concentration of sports drinks in our post-weigh-in rehydration drinks, aiming for 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of sodium per liter of fluid. So a sports drink could contain 60 to 80 grams of carbohydrates per liter and 500 milligrams of sodium, but an optimal post-weigh-in rehydration drink would contain 20 to 60 grams of carbs per liter and 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of sodium. You have two broad options for your rehydration drinks. You could buy oral rehydration salt powder, such as Liquid IV, Rehydrate, or these, or Rehydrate XL if you live in Thailand. Or you could just as easily make it yourself using a sports drink or orange juice for the carbohydrate component. I like to aim for a 3% concentration, so you would use enough sports drink or orange juice to provide 30 grams of carbohydrates. Then you would top up the rest of the liter with plain water and add about 3 grams of table salt to provide 1,200 milligrams of sodium. Now, what about potassium and other electrolytes, I hear you say? Well, we know that sodium is by far the most important electrolyte when it comes to rehydration, and the evidence for including other electrolytes such as potassium is limited. It probably won't harm you to include them as long as the concentrations aren't too high. If you are especially worried about potassium, then use orange juice if you're making your own sports drink as the carb component, or buy one of the oral rehydration salt products that I mentioned a moment ago. Have I noticed any difference in clients using the sports drink as their carbs, which is low potassium, versus orange juice or an oral rehydration solution? No, so it's completely up to you. Next, how much to drink. We want to replenish 150% of our fluid losses after weigh-ins. But how do you know your fluid losses? Is it just the weight you sweated out in the sauna suit or the bath? But what about the water that you lost via water restriction? There are two ways that you can estimate your fluid losses. One is to simply take however much weight you lost via sweating and use that as your fluid losses. Yes, this ignores the fluid lost via water restriction and the other 5-week strategies, but you're going to continue to take on fluid beyond the initial rehydration stage anyway, and it's not like you're going to hit your target, which might be, say, 2 to 4 liters over the first 2 to 4 hours, and then just stop drinking until the fight. So this method, in reality, is completely fine. Alternatively, you could use your morning weight the day before weigh-ins minus your weigh-in weight as a proxy for fluid losses, as most of the weight lost in the final 24 hours will come via a combination of water restriction and active or passive sweating. This may slightly overestimate your needs, as you may lose some additional weight from reduced gut contents or reduced glycogen, but in reality, it's not going to be a huge amount. Practically, the difference between these two numbers will be relatively similar. So to be honest, it doesn't really matter which method you use. I've seen both methods recommended by different trusted sources. So ultimately, it's up to you which one you pick. Just be consistent with that fight to fight. Once you have your fluid losses estimate in kilograms, multiply that number by 1.5 to get your total fluid target in liters. For example, if your fluid losses were 2.2 kilograms, 2.2 times 1.5 is 3.3 liters, and that would be your total rehydration fluid target. Now, don't just down that all at once. You need to pace yourself to balance maximal rehydration speed with gut comfort. As soon as you're off the scales, consume 600 ml of fluid within the first 15 minutes to kickstart that rehydration process. You can then sip on the remaining 400 ml over the next 45 minutes until the end of the first hour after weigh-ins. After that, consume 1 litre per hour of your oral rehydration solution until you've hit your total rehydration target. After that, just drink whatever fluids you like at a frequency that satisfies your thirst. If your gut is feeling uncomfortable, it's okay to reduce fluid to less than 1 litre per hour if needed, as long as you hit your total rehydration target eventually. Conversely, I've also seen as high as 1.5 litres per hour recommended during the initial rehydration stages by the UFC Performance Institute, for example. Practically, I find with my clients, 1 litre per hour hits that sweet spot of being fast enough to support maximal rehydration speed, but not so much fluid that the athlete suffers gut discomfort issues. So I recommend going with 1 litre per hour as your starting point. So that's it. Follow this advice and you'll be rehydrating in the scientifically most optimal way. As a quick recap, 150% of fluid losses in the final 24 hours using an oral rehydration solution at a rate of 1 litre per hour. Don't forget to get your free Fighter Nutrition report, answer 16 questions, and I'll send you a personalized report in which I identify your weak pillar causing your nutrition pyramid to tumble and give you concrete action points specific to your priority area so you know exactly how to overcome your past roadblocks and you'll be confident that your dieting efforts will deliver results. Click the link in the description to get your free report today.